All righty. Hello, everybody. I'm Brian Emanuel, the Chief of the Bureau of Land Resources at the Water Management District, St. Johns River Water Management District. I didn't know Ludi was going to be giving us some coverage too, so I guess we're getting lots of exposure today. That was a good job, Ludi. I appreciate it. I'm here to kind of brag on our land management team's successful burn year last fiscal year. The Water Management District's fiscal year is like the federal fiscal year. It runs from October through September. So fiscal year 21 just ended in September 30th. But first, I'd like to, since I could just throw up a slide they wanted to know about our successful year, I could give you the stats, but I thought I'd give a little background on the program before we talk about the stats. So the district's prescribed burn program is younger than many of the ones in the state, other ones in the state like the Florida Forest Service or the Florida Park Service. The district began prescribed burning in February of 1993, with the first burn being a 250-acre burn at Sunny Hill Restoration Area, which is in southern Marion County. At that time, it was a baby program. There were 5 staff members in land management. They had a few 3/4-ton trucks with small slip-on units, a few fire-trained horses, and a few drip torches, and that was it. The 4 of the 5 staff are pictured on this slide. Sitting on the tracks is Steve Torchmiller, who was basically the father of the land management program, and he's the individual that brought fire to the Water Management District program. Sitting in that Florida Forest Service dozer, that was not the district's dozer, is Peter Henn. He's the only member of this 5-person team that's still with the district. On the horses, it's Alan Alshouse and Danny Mills. Danny was the specialist that owned and trained the horses. We're assuming this picture was taken by Nels Parsons, who was the 5th member of the land management team. So when a program is in its infancy, innovation and hard work is what gets it growing. As I mentioned, the horses were a big tool in the toolbox in the early days. And for the next 25 years, equine ignition was often used on district properties. Unfortunately, Danny retired in 2019, and the tool was no longer in the toolbox. But it was good while it lasted. The truck in the picture is an example of what they used for engines back in the early days. So let's fast forward to the here and the now. This map depicts the boundary of the district, as well as the outline of the 6 land management regions. So each one of these regions is comprised of a land manager and a mix, depending on the lay of the land. It's a mix of land management specialists and technicians that work for the manager. And that's the core team of the land management staff. All are trained in fire. And the core team, when fully staffed, is 21 individuals. It covers 18 counties and over 600,000 acres in ownership. So as the program grows, we got more staff, obviously. The Bureau as a whole consists of 36 staff members, including the 21 core land managers in the field. Of the 36 total staff, 34 are trained fire practitioners providing support to the regional land managers. So the planners, GIS people, forester, myself, program managers are all helping out. And all of our invasive plant folks are all fire trained. Additionally, the Bureau is directly supported by a group of reserves of over a dozen district staff from various other bureaus, divisions, and offices. There are folks that are just interested in helping out. We train them up, gear them up, and they help out whenever their schedule permits. It's also important to mention the administrative support that we get. The program receives from the district offices and valuable assistance with procurement, planning, and operations. And also, our cooperators are very important. We share resources with FWC, Florida Forest Service, Park Service, various counties, UF, Central Florida, University of Central Florida, just all sorts of other agencies and NGOs as well. And we also use contract fire staff. We have 2 contracts with private contractors that provide both staff and equipment on our burns. This is not working. There. Another, sorry. So as the land management program grew in personnel, we also started growing in equipment, particularly fire-related equipment. Currently, we have 7 Type 6 brush trucks, 2 4,000-gallon water tenders, a whole slew of ATVs and RTVs that have tanks on them. We have a Marshmaster 2 that's outfitted for fire, and 4 tractor plow units. We also have several multi-purpose airboats that can quickly be outfitted with slip-on units for both ignition and suppression. And we have contracts with 2 helicopter vendors. We own 3 sphere dispensing machines and a bunch of power shots and flares and all that. So basically, when you have the staff and the equipment, what else goes towards having a successful program and a successful burn year? For us, weather is the obvious answer. A good weather year, you get more burning done, but we can't control that. You do need to make sure all your units are prepared in advance of the fire season and ready to go, and prescriptions are pre-written, and these 2 things get easier as a program ages. The fire lines are just on a schedule to be disked, usually 2 times a year for the primary lines. Prescriptions are archived and easily available, so they can just be updated and printed out, and it makes it all easier. Additionally, good coordination and communication is the key, especially when maximizing effort on a good burn day and getting 3, 4, or even 5 burns fully staffed on the same day. This gets rather complicated on a good stellar burn weather day, because competition for resources internally and with cooperators gets fierce on occasion. And our 2 land management program managers, Pete Henn and Jeremy Olson, serve as our fire resource coordinators. They switch off back and forth with that responsibility. So all burn bosses planning a burn run their requests for resources through the coordinator, and that coordinator allocates resources to the different burns. External requests from partners also go through the same resource coordinators. It just makes it all easier and more efficient. And sometimes they can't staff a burn because there's just too much going on. That does happen. So now for the stats. Last year, we burned 52,720 acres, which was an all-time record since the inception of the program. The previous record was 51,693 acres in 2008. We're really proud of this accomplishment. It's coming off of a poor year. The previous year, we were dealing with adjusting for COVID and kind of feeling our way around, and the weather wasn't as good. But it really clicked this year. We had 11 2-burn days last fiscal year. We had 5 3-burn days and 1 4 and 1 5-burn day. Staff performed 19 aerial ignitions, which is 3 shy of the previous record of 21. And we had 1 day that had 2 helicopter burns going on simultaneously. This slide is a snip from our fire management dashboard, and it shows some stats from the year. The interesting data point for me here is that our biggest month by far was March. And we look back over the last 5 or 6 years, and this is a shift. Almost every single year, the peak month is by and far February for us. So hopefully, weather permitting, this will be a continued trend towards more growing season burn as our fuels have been reduced over the years. And we've also been doing a lot of mechanical adjustments with some of the Amendment 1 monies to help us push fire into areas in the growing season. The map on the left represents all the burns performed last year by scaled symbols. Notice the huge triangle down in Indian River County. This was an 11,000 acre burn on Blue Cypress Conservation Area and accounted for almost 1/5 of our acreage. This was the work of Amy Copeland and her staff down in the Palm Bay office. That big accomplishment was extremely impressive, and I couldn't be there for that one, but I don't want to diminish the efforts from all of the other staff who busted their tails participating in the other 80 burns district-wide. We have a lot of urban interface, a lot of challenging burns. My opening slide was Hal Scott, an old burn that Pete Henn did right on the beach line with a helicopter running flank fires. So a lot of nuances in the district. The dedicated staff that are involved in our program, from the fire line to the procurement office to our communication staff, are all needed to get it done. However, it's integral to to have a support from above. Our organization does recognize the importance of our most valuable land management tool, as well as other challenges it brings. From our division director, my supervisor, to the executive director, all the way up to the governing board, we have full support to make fire management our top priority. And my information is here. I can't stay after the 12 o'clock deadline. I have a previous obligation, but if you think of anything after the question session here, feel free to contact me myself at either my phone number or my email address, which is wrong on there. There's no W after the DE.
All right, Brian, thank you so much for that presentation and for talking about the year that y'all have had getting so much fire on the ground. At this point, we have some time remaining to go into Q&A. So if you all have questions for Brian about their burn program or about the evolution of burning within the water management district or anything like that, please go ahead and type that into the Q&A tool in Zoom, and we will get to those in the time that we have remaining. See a lot of good feedback, Brian, coming into the chat window. Folks that it sounds like have had some support from folks in your program over the past few years, and the things that y'all have done to help increase burning on partner lands as well. So when you talk about those acres, does that include support that y'all have provided on partner lands, or is that just on district lands?
It does not include that. Oddly enough, that's something we don't track acreage wise on partners land. So that's strictly on our ownership that we manage. This doesn't even count helping out on the partners on properties we do not manage.
Well, good. That just goes to show that, you know, when partners work with each other, it helps to elevate everybody and bring everybody's burns forward and increase the number of acres on burnable lands across the state. Comment in the Q&A about that rattlesnake in your last slide there.
I don't see I can't see the comments.
It just said Ivan just shared that it's a pretty big snake.
Yeah, I'm a snake guy, so I try to put one in every presentation if I can. That was at Lake George Conservation Area. He was patrolling the backfire for rodents.
All right. Well, Brian, oh, here came a question in from Cinnamon. Cinnamon says, you know, beside looking awesome, she says, was there an advantage to using horses on your prescribed fires?
Yes, there is, and they weren't a part of they weren't part of every single burn by any means. But when our timbered lands on the north half of the district, with palmetto rough and all, it's really advantageous to be on a horse. They go through the palmettos a lot easier than we do. You have to be very careful with them in the summertime. Danny was really good about pulling them out and resting them, or just pulling them out if they were getting stressed. And he would usually bring extra horses. And not everybody was horseback savvy, so there was a small subset of staff that were usually on the horses. But you also get a different vantage point from up there as well. They were a good tool, but it's no longer available.
Oh, so the horses are no longer available. Y'all can't use them anymore.
No, he retired. He lived on property and kept the horses on property. When he retired, he moved into a house that he'd been working on, and they liquidated a lot of the fire horses.
Oh, that's too bad. I've enjoyed hearing stories about those from Steve Miller in the past. It's pretty unique.
We used them at Ordway several times too in the past. They liked them a lot there.
We have a couple questions that have come in. One I just received from one of our other panelists. You know, could you talk about your next goals for the burn program, or do you have end goal for acres in terms of a target that you'd like to see?
Well, I'd like to keep up that same number, but we've only broken 50,000 2 times since 1993. And it's all depending on weather. We just keep getting staff, additional training and bringing on as many recruits as we can from the reserves in the district. There's people in regulatory that come help us burn, but they have busy jobs, so they can't come every time. So the more reserves we can build up, then it's all about getting multiple burns done on a good day, and still supporting our partners when we can, and that's the challenge. But I think it's clicking pretty good. It's really more about the weather these days. Our biological need for the district is a little over 60,000 acres a year based on return intervals, and we've never reached that. It's a lofty goal, but we shoot for it. If we get half of that biological need in a year, anything over 30,000 acres is a good year for us. Over 50 is phenomenal, but we keep trying, and we're putting mechanical processes to as surrogates where we can in urban interface areas and whatnot. It's is not the same as fire, but it's better than nothing.
We had another question in the chat window that came in from Kevin Robertson. He's asking, do you try to disc your fire breaks in the same locations to minimize your ground disturbance?
Well, we have certain fire lines that are disked every year or twice a year. The perimeter lines, that type of thing, main lines, I would call them. If we start having erosion issues, then we adjust, and then we have internal lines that are a lot of them that are just for the burn plan for that year. And where we can, we're looking at eliminating interior fire lines. If we can start using aerial ignition to do bigger units on several properties, we started letting Major take the lines back in some instances. There was a history. A lot of our lands are in the north half of the district are timber lands, pines and lines that we're working on, but there were a lot. You'll find relic lines around wetlands and ecotones, and we've done a pretty good job of eliminating most of those and going to mode breaks if there needs to be something there.
All right. Well, Brian, thank you so much for sharing with our group today and for sharing your presentation and talking about what your program has been able to accomplish over the last year. Congratulations on reaching that milestone. And we appreciate your time. And if you all have additional questions or follow-up questions with Brian, Mary, if you'll scroll back through the chat, you'll see Mary Nell has his updated accurate email address in the chat window, Emanuel at sjrwemd.com. So thanks again, Brian. We appreciate your time today.